So I want to greet our panelists. We're moving to the second panel, Global and Regional Security. And here, I want to give the first floor. And before we will start, I will just notice that our respected Dr. Shakarishvili, he's stuck in the borders and he asked more time. It's okay. Why? We support each other here and we'll give him time, and if needed, we can move another panel. So, dear distinguished colleagues, it's an honor to introduce our panelist, a speaker from Cyprus. Amazing culture in Europe. The island of Cyprus has a great history. And please join me in welcoming Mr. Louises Michael, an international relations expert and political analyst, and the principal of Missoes College. He lectures in European politics and served as a policy expert at the Mediterranean Migration Hub of the European Public Law Organization. With advanced degrees in international relations and specialization in security, conflict, and crisis resolution, he brings both academic depth and real-world policy experience. Mr. Louises has held leadership roles in NGOs, the private sector, and the government, including serving in parliamentary scientific associate and later as a director of the Office of the Minister of Interior, where he established Cyprus' first National Return Office and represent the country in the European Commission high-level network on returns. Currently, he is a vice president of the Cyprus Institute of Demographic and Migration Policy with a long record of service and years leadership. He is a peace builder and the professional international affairs. A frequent speaker and author on international relations and migration, Louises Michael continues to share dialogue on some of Europe's most pressing issues. And for me, it's an honor because now we are situating in Cyprus. And actually, I will give the floor from another city of the Cyprus. So the stage is yours. And from Paphos, we are moving to your city. Dear Michael, stage is yours. Please, you can, I am stopping sharing my window, so stage is yours. If I missed something, please apologize.
No, you got everything right, dear Christina. Let me, first of all, I think I'm already sharing my screen, right? Perfect. So, as far as we are okay with the presentation, dear Christina, dear colleagues, dear guests, please allow me to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to the association and the organizers for the great honor of inviting me to speak today, and my warm congratulations, especially to you and your colleagues, dear Christina, for putting together such an insightful and truly inspiring event. Distinguished colleagues, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, the role of the United Nations peacekeeping in modern conflicts reflects both continuity and transformation in the practice of international security governance. Unlike the Cold War era, where peacekeepers primarily supervise ceasefires between states, contemporary peacekeeping operates in intrastate wars, fragile states, and complex humanitarian emergencies. As conflicts increasingly involve asymmetric violence, terrorism, and organized crime, the United Nations has expanded its mandates to encompass multidimensional strategies that combine military presence with civilian protection, governance support, and of course, development initiatives. This shift underscores the recognition that peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of institutions and norms capable of sustaining stability. Yet, despite its evolution, peacekeeping faces enduring dilemmas of legitimacy, neutrality, and effectiveness. Missions such as those in Mali, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan illustrate both the possibilities and limitations of international interventions. While peacekeepers have provided critical protection to civilian population and safeguarded cultural heritage, they have often struggled with underfunding, political constraints in the Security Council, which we see from time to time, and of course, inconsistent cooperation from host states. Furthermore, the expectation that peacekeeping should simultaneously engage engage in stabilization, counterterrorism, and state building places always extraordinary burdens on missions not originally designed for such tasks. These challenges reveal the tension between global normative aspirations and the hard realities of contested conflict environments. Having said that, the United Nations peacekeeping remains an indispensable, though imperfect tool in modern conflict management. Its strength lies in providing a framework for collective security and legitimacy that few other international actors can replicate. However, sustaining its relevance required adaptive mandates, stronger partnerships with regional organizations, and a deeper engagement with local communities. To ensure that operations reflect the political, cultural, and social realities on the ground, and at the same time, the future of peacekeeping thus depends not on the returning to traditional neutrality, as we have seen in the past, but on embracing an adaptive, multidimensional approach that can reconcile international norms with the shifting landscape of modern warfare. The Cyprus conflict, characterized by deep-rooted intercommunal divisions and protracted periods of violence, has long posed a challenge to international conflict management and peacekeeping. In response to recurring outbreaks of violence between the Greek Cypriot and the Turkish Cypriot communities, the United Nations established the United Nations Peacekeeping Force in Cyprus, the so-called UNFICYP, in 1964. Originally tasked with preventing further fighting and maintaining stability on the island, UNFICYP's mission has evolved dramatically over the decades. As the political landscape in Cyprus remains unresolved for so many years, the operation has expanded its mandate to include monitoring ceasefire lines, maintaining a buffer zone, conducting humanitarian activities, and supporting high-level diplomatic efforts. Recently, scholarly analysis underscored that effective conflict termination, whether through mediation or peacekeeping, hinges on the capacity of international actors to build environments conducive to dialogue and self-sustaining peace. During my speech today, I aim to analyze the evolution challenges and prospects of the United Nations peacekeeping in Cyprus, with a particular focus on the UNFICYP operation. By assessing historical milestones, operational mandates, and modern reform debates, I aim to highlight both the successes and limitations of UNFICYP in managing intercommunal tensions and preventing renewed violence. Moreover, drawing on insights from broader research on mediation and peacekeeping effectiveness, I will refer on how traditional peacekeeping efforts can be complemented by flexible, locally sensitive strategies to meet today's security challenges. The historical evolution of UNFICYP reflects the complex dynamics of Cyprus, the Cyprus conflict, and the challenge inherent in managing long-standing, ethnically divided societies. As said before, UNFICYP was created in March 1964 by the United Nations Security Council, primarily as a response to escalating tensions between the Greek Cypriot and the Turkish Cypriot communities. The initial mandate focused on preventing further outbreaks of violence and reducing the risk of wider region conflict. At its inception, the mission was envisioned as a temporary measure designed to stabilize the situation while enabling at the same time actors to negotiate a lasting solution. The military coup in 1974 in Cyprus and the subsequent Turkish military invasion marked a significant turning point on the island's history. Following the hostilities of that year, UNFICYP's mandate underwent a significant expansion. The Security Council, recognizing the permanent nature of the intercommunal and geopolitical conflict, tasked the mission with additional responsibilities. These included supervising ceasefire lines, maintaining a permanent buffer zone between the two communities, undertaking, of course, humanitarian measures aiming at the alleviation of the adverse effects of the conflict on civilians. During this period, the operation was reoriented as not only a stabilizer on the battlefield, but also as an enabler of broader political processes. However, despite extensive efforts, a comprehensive political settlement has still remained elusive. Today, nearly 6 decades after its establishment, UNFICYP continues to operate under an expanded mandate. In the absence of a permanent political solution on the Cyprus issue, the mission remains a linchpin in maintaining relative calm on the island. Understanding UNFICYP's operational framework is key to evaluating its effectiveness as a peacekeeping and mediation instrument in Cyprus. The mission mandate has been shaped by the Security Council resolutions and has sought to address both traditional and emerging conflict dynamics. UNFICYP's mandate can be summarized through 4 primary functions. First of all, the ceasefire supervision, as UNFICYP is responsible for monitoring and verifying the cessation of hostilities along predefined ceasefire lines. This involves routine patrols and coordinated checks to prevent any unauthorized military maneuvers or accidental spillover of violence. Second, the buffer zone maintenance, and we are talking about the buffer zone that takes one to the other edge of the island of about 180 kilometers. One of the most critical aspects of UNFICYP operation is the maintenance of this buffer zone between the Greek Cypriot and the Turkish Cypriot communities. The buffer zone serves not only as a physical barrier, but also, and mostly, if I may say, a reminder of the need for restraint and dialogue. Third, humanitarian activities undertaken by the United Nations peacekeeping force, as recognizing the adverse impacts of conflict on civilians' population, UNFICYP undertakes various humanitarian activities. These initiatives include mostly facilitating the delivery of food, medical supplies, and other essential services to affected communities, but as well as aiding in the resettlement of displaced individuals. And fourth, diplomatic support of the good offices of the United Nations General Council, Secretary General, as UNFICYP also plays a vital role in supporting the diplomatic efforts. By acting in accordance with the good offices mandate of the UN Secretary General, the mission helps create a conducive environment for political negotiations and confidence-building measures among the warring parties. At this point, allow me to say that the historical trajectory of UNFICYP from a short-term conflict management tool to a persistent peacekeeping operation illustrates the complexities of managing protracted conflicts. Despite its continuity, the operation evolution also raises important questions regarding the efficiency of traditional peacekeeping models in addressing modern complex conflicts. While the mandate of UNFICYP is comprehensive, the realities on the ground pose several operational challenges. The operations mandate rooted in traditional peacekeeping principles is sometimes criticized for its inflexibility. Although capable of monitoring ceasefire lines effectively, UNFICYP's mandate does not extend to actively enforcing political solutions or overcoming structural issues that underlie the conflict. As highlighted in recent international discussions, expecting peacekeeping to serve as a Superman capable of resolving the conflict in its entirety unrealistic. UNFICYP also depends on the contributions of troop and police contingents from member states. Variations in troops numbers, financial constraints, and challenges in logistics can affect the mission's operational efficiency. Additionally, evolving international security dynamics necessitate adaptive strategies that sometimes exceed the available resources. As with many other United Nations peacekeeping operations, the ultimate success of UNFICYP is contingent upon the political will of the conflicted parties and the international community, of course. And in the case of Cyprus, it involves the European Union as well. Protracted political deadlocks and lack of comprehensive peace agreements limit the operation's impact on achieving lasting conflict resolution. Also, recent research on the effectiveness of mediation and peacekeeping suggests that while traditional peacekeeping models like UNFICYP excel at stabilizing volatile environments, they may fall short in addressing longer-term conflict resolution challenges. In contrast, transformative peacekeeping, characterized by multidimensional mandates and active support for political reconstruction, has shown promise as a complementary approach, particularly when combined with robust mediation efforts. Mediation and peacekeeping are increasingly recognized as complementary tools in conflict management. Research in international relations highlights that while mediation primarily aims to facilitate negotiated settlements, peacekeeping operations create the necessary preconditions for such negotiations to succeed, especially in the case of Cyprus. UNFICYP has historically functioned as a traditional peacekeeping operation, although its primary focus is on monitoring and maintaining the ceasefire lines. Its presence is also instrumental in supporting mediation efforts at the political level. According to recent studies, mediation is also often the decisive factor in conflict termination, with peacekeeping playing a supportive and enabling role by creating conditions that facilitate opening channels of dialogue. As reiterated by the United Nations Secretary General, peacekeeping should be viewed not as an end in itself, but as a tool to create the space for nationally owned political solutions. In Cyprus, the function of UNFICYP has extended beyond mere surveillance. It now underpins diplomatic initiatives by reassuring both communities and by providing objective, on-ground information that informs high-level negotiations. Furthermore, the juxtaposition of mediation and peacekeeping in Cyprus illustrates how the two can be mutually reinforcing. While mediation seeks to resolve the conflict by addressing underlying grievances, peacekeeping operations, by ensuring security and stability, make it feasible for diplomatic channels to operate effectively. Historically, UNFICYP has operated predominantly as a traditional peacekeeping force, as mentioned earlier. However, the effectiveness of UNFICYP has also been linked to its indirect contributions to mediation. For instance, by providing a credible presence in contested areas and by ensuring the protection of civilians, UNFICYP builds confidence among the parties involved. This confidence, in turn, helps create an information environment that is more conducive to binding negotiated agreements. In practice, the synergy is evidenced in the operation's daily activities, where, apart from routine military tasks, peacekeepers frequently engage in informal dialogue with community leaders. Such interactions often serve as informal confidence-building measures that align with the broader mediation strategies championed by international diplomats. Consequently, even though UNFICYP remains categorized under traditional peacekeeping, its role has evolved to function as a critical support mechanism for mediation efforts by bridging the gap between military stability and political dialogue. Beyond Cyprus, studies examining the effectiveness of peacekeeping in conjunction with mediation have highlighted that operations with a multidimensional mandate, combining traditional functions with proactive mediation support, tend to be more successful in conflict termination than those relying solely on military stabilization. The comparative analysis of international operation reveals that transformative peacekeeping missions have evolved a higher degree of political engagement alongside conventional peacekeeping, have enhanced mediation outcomes in several contexts. Although UNFICYP is primarily a traditional operation, its evolution mirrors the gradual shift in other UN peacekeeping missions, where a blend of stability and mediation is increasingly considered essential. For example, the research by Clayton and Doricine on mediation and peacekeeping back in 2022 underscores that mediation is the key driver for halting hostilities, while peacekeepers, while combined with well-coordinated mediation, reinforces the political process towards a negotiated settlement. This notion is particularly resonant in Cyprus, ladies and gentlemen, where long-term peace remains a distant prospect in the absence of substantial and credible mediation efforts. The legacy of UNFICYP is a testament to both the potential and the limitations of traditional peacekeeping in handling protracted conflicts. Where the mission has undoubtedly contributed to maintaining relative calmness in Cyprus, its success must be weighed against significant shortcomings. Several notable successes can be attributed to UNFICYP's sustained presence and robust operational framework. First of all, since its establishment, UNFICYP has played a crucial role in preventing the resumption of large-scale military conflict on the island. By continuously monitoring ceasefire lines and maintaining a buffer zone, the operation has effectively deterred escalation that might lead to full-scale war. Over the years, the mission has provided a stabilizing influence on a region marked by deep-seated ethnic and political divisions. Through routine patrols, verification missions, and humanitarian interventions, UNFICYP has contributed to an environment in which sporadic violence has been contained. The presence of UNFICYP has also indirectly fostered diplomatic engagement. By supporting the United Nations Secretary General's Good Office mission, the peacekeeping operation has helped to keep channels of communication open between the conflicted parties. This role is critical in maintaining international focus on finding a political solution, even if a comprehensive settlement remains distant. On the other side, and despite the successes, UNFICYP has not been without its critics or notable shortcomings. Perhaps the most persistent criticism of UNFICYP, dear colleagues, is its failure to contribute decisively to a lasting political solution. The continued division of the island indicates that while the mission prevents open warfare, it has not succeeded in resolving the underlying political issues. This shortfall reflects not only the limitations of a traditional peacekeeping mandate, but also the enduring complexity of the Cyprus problem. Historical accounts note that UNFICYP was not always successful in its protective role. For instance, after 1974 and the division of the island, there were periods of provocation by the Turkish army forces that in several cases led to murders of Greek Cypriot civilians in the buffer zone. On the other hand, critics from Turkey emphasized that the mission failed to prevent hostilities against Turkish Cypriots before 1974, claiming that this necessitated Turkey's intervention that subsequently led to the invasion and illegal occupation of the island, which, according to the Turkish narrative, it was a peace operation to protect the Turkish Cypriot minority. The evolving nature of security threats, including issues related to human rights, gender, and the impacts of climate change, has exposed some of the flexibility inherent in UNFICYP's mandate. Calls for mission reform suggest that while traditional peacekeeping can ensure stability, it often lacks the flexibility required to address broader political and social challenges in a rapidly changing international environment. Despite its long history and notable achievements, UNFICYP faces significant challenges that impacts both its operational effectiveness and its ability to influence long-term political outcomes. One of the primary challenges confronting UNFICYP is the enduring political stalemate in Cyprus. The absence of a unified political resolution not only limits the scope of peacekeeping operations, but also raises questions about the long-term sustainability. This failure to achieve a political settlement implies that the operation remains essentially a management tool rather than a transformative instrument for change. This political impasse is compounded by divergent narratives and conflicting historical interpretations, such as Turkey's assertion that the roots of the conflict date back to violence before 1974. UNFICYP's mandate, while broad in scope, is defined by parameters set decades ago. These parameters often lack the flexibility required to respond to modern challenges. For example, the mission has been critiqued for its inability to address issues beyond military stabilization, such as the pressing social and economic needs of affected communities or the environmental challenges exacerbated by prolonged conflict. Resource constraints further exacerbate these limitations. Variability in commitments from contributing states, fluctuations in funding levels, and challenges in troop deployment can undermine the operation's capacity to adapt to emerging threats. The international security landscape has undergone significant changes since first UNFICYP's inception. Emerging challenges such as terrorism, asymmetrical warfare, and the multifaceted impacts of climate change demand new approaches to peacekeeping. Traditional peacekeeping models, which focus primarily on military observation and ceasefire maintenance, may not adequately address these modern threats. There is growing need for peacekeeping missions to integrate elements of transformative peacekeeping, such as local institutions building, comprehensive risk analysis, and proactive humanitarian assistance to remain relevant in today's complex operating environment. Another dimension that has increasingly come into focus is the sociocultural impact of prolonged peacekeeping operations. In Cyprus, as in other conflict zones, there is mounting recognition of the need for greater inclusivity, particularly with regard to gender and civil society representation in peacekeeping activities. Delegates and representatives have stressed that incorporating these perspectives, the perspective of women and local community actors, is essential for create more holistic and sustainable peace processes. Such calls underscore the necessity of reforming traditional peacekeeping mandates to reflect contemporary values and priorities. At the same time, high-level international discussions, as highlighted by statements of UN officials and representatives at diplomatic meetings, reflect a broader critique of UN peacekeeping practices. Critics argue that expanding mission mandates beyond core responsibilities can lead to inflated mandates that overburden peacekeepers and, of course, dilute their effectiveness. This critique is particularly salient in the context of Cyprus, where calls have been made to scale back secondary tasks related to human rights, gender, and climate issues. While these expanded mandates are intended to make missions more comprehensive, they can also detract from the primary mission of maintaining security and stability. UN peacekeeping operations worldwide have come under increasing scrutiny for their ability to remain relevant amid evolving global challenges. The experience of UNFICYP provides several lessons that are critical for reforming and modernizing peacekeeping efforts. One of the core insights from research of UN reforms is the need for normative flexibility. Traditional peacekeeping operations, while effective at maintaining immediate security, often lack the adaptability required to meet long-term political and social objectives. The case of UNFICYP illustrates this point vividly. To better serve the primary objective of facilitating sustainable peace, peacekeeping missions must evolve from rigid, standardized protocols towards more flexible operational frameworks that can adapt based on local realities. Modern research underscores that mediation is often the key catalyst for conflict termination, with peacekeeping serving in a complementary capacity. For Cyprus, the integration of robust mediation efforts alongside traditional peacekeeping can create a more conducive environment for political dialogue. Lessons from UNFICYP emphasize that peacekeeping should not be seen as an isolated tool, but rather as a part of broader spectrum of conflict management that includes active and continuous mediation. This integrated approach can enhance the durability and effectiveness of peace processes by ensuring the security measures and diplomatic efforts reinforce each other. Successful peacekeeping in today's complex environment requires the establishment of strong partnerships, both within the United Nations system and with external stakeholders. UNFICYP's experience demonstrates that the success of traditional peacekeeping operations often depends on their ability to work in tandem with other actors, whether regional organizations, host governments, or local civil society groups. The evolving paradigm of network multilateralism highlights the importance of collaborative approach in achieving sustainable peace, emphasizing that no single actor or mandate can address the full spectrum of conflict dynamics on its own. Modern peacekeeping reforms call for an inclusive approach that integrates both sociocultural and gender dimensions into missions planning and execution. The emphasis of deploying more women and engaging with local communities reflects a broader trend in international peacekeeping to move beyond purely military focus and embrace a holistic approach to conflict resolution. Reform efforts must thus strive to incorporate these perspectives in order to define success not only in terms of reduced violence, but mostly in terms of enhanced human security. For those reforms to be effective, several practical considerations must be taken into account. Funding models must evolve to provide long-term support. Training programs should incorporate modules on local mediation and inclusive practices, and member states must demonstrate political commitment to the evolving mandates. The experience of UNFICYP shows that without positive political will and resource support, reforms may remain aspirational rather than transformative. The future of UN peacekeeping in Cyprus, ladies and gentlemen, remains deeply interlinked with the prospects for a comprehensive political solution. Despite the many challenges, there are several optimistic signals and potential pathways for the way forward. Given the persistent division and the absence of a lasting political settlement, UNFICYP is likely to remain a fixture in Cyprus for the foreseeable future. Its ability to prevent outbreak of renewed violence and to maintain a stable environment forms the backbone of the island's security architecture. However, to remain effective, the mission must continue to evolve by incorporating lessons, learning from the past operations, and by integrating more flexible, locally informed practices. One of the most promising prospects for Cyprus lies in improved integration of mediation with peacekeeping. There is increasing international consensus that robust mediation efforts, when supported by effective peacekeeping, can help bridge the political divide. Enhanced diplomatic engagement, underpinned by targeted mediation strategies and supported by comprehensive intelligence gathered on the ground, may eventually pave the way for a durable political settlement. Future peacekeeping operations in Cyprus will need to adapt to a myriad of contemporary challenges. The incorporation of issues such as climate change, the gender equality, and local economic development into the operational mandate could redefine success in ways that extend beyond mere cessation of hostilities. For instance, integrated climate sensitivity approach and enhancing the role of women in peacekeeping not only fosters a more inclusive process, but also builds resilience within the community. These modern challenges require the departure from traditional peacekeeping models and call for innovative, multi-layered solutions. Reform debates within the United Nations suggest that future peacekeeping mandates may become more dynamic and context-specific. Recent discussions at high-level retreats and ministerial forums have emphasized the needs for network multilateralism and tailored mandates that reflect the realities on the ground. Such reforms, if implemented effectively, of course, could transform UNFICYP from a purely reactive stabilization mission into an operation that actively contributes to the political and socio-economic transformation of conflict-affected areas. Drawing on lessons from both traditional and transformative peacekeeping models, the vision for the future of UN operations in Cyprus could evolve a hybrid model. This model would retain the core strengths of traditional peacekeeping, namely its ability to monitor and maintain secure spaces, while integrating innovative approaches from transformative peacekeeping, such as active mediation, local capacity building, and socio-cultural engagement. The hybrid model is envisioned as a flexible structure, able to adjust its strategies in real time based on continuous assessments on local dynamics. The evolution of UN peacekeeping in Cyprus, as embodied by UNFICYP, offers both a cautionary tale and a foundation for future reform. While the mission has succeeded in preventing large-scale warfare and maintaining a fragile stability, its ability to foster a lasting political settlement remains a profound challenge. Distinguished colleagues, dear guests, to sum up, UNFICYP's resolution, a peace force mission that was initially established in 1964 to prevent intercommunal violence, reflect the complexity of the Cyprus conflict and the persistent challenges of shifting from military stabilization to political resolution. Research underscores that mediation is often the decisive factor in conflict termination, with peacekeeping serving as an essential enabler. UNFICYP, as a traditional peacekeeping force, indirectly supports mediation by providing a secure environment for dialogue and by facilitating confidence-building measures. UNFICYP's greatest success include the prevention of full-scale war and the stabilization of a volatile environment. However, its shortcomings, particularly in inability to produce a permanent political settlement and its mandating flexibility, highlight the limitation of traditional peacekeeping in addressing the complex socio-political dimensions of protracted conflicts. Challenges facing UNFICYP include the enduring political stalemate, resource and mandate constraints, evolving security threats, and socio-cultural issues. These challenges underscore the need for reforms that promote normative flexibility, enhance integration of mediation, increase multilateral collaboration, and of course, incorporation of modern socio-cultural dimensions. Looking forward, the future of UN peacekeeping in Cyprus hinges on adapting to contemporary realities by embracing a hybrid operational model that synergizes traditional stabilization with transformative elements of mediation and socio-cultural engagement. Such a model holds promise for enabling sustainable peace, despite the absence of a comprehensive political settlement. Policymakers and UN planners must recognize that peacekeeping and mediation are not mutually exclusive. An integrated approach whereby peacekeepers not only secure physical spaces, but also actively contribute to building trust, gathering unbiased intelligence, and I'm highlighting the unbiased intelligence, and supporting diplomatic initiatives is essential for long-term conflict resolution. Future peacekeeping mandates must evolve beyond traditional paradigms, emphasizing adaptive operational frameworks, enhanced local engagement, and the integration of cross-cutting issues such as gender and climate change is imperative. This mandate reform can help create mission capabilities that are responsive to the complexities of modern conflicts. The effectiveness of peacekeeping operations depends heavily on genuine multilateral cooperation. This means strengthening ties among UN agencies, regional organizations, host governments, and of course, local civil society actors to create a more supportive environment for both security and sustainable development. Addressing resource constraints requires innovative funding mechanisms and better logistical coordination. Ensuring that UN peacekeeping missions have predictable long-term funding coupled with enhanced troop readiness and logistical support will be crucial in adapting to future challenges. To conclude, UNFICYP stands as a seminal example of how traditional peacekeeping has been deployed to manage a complex, protracted conflict. Its evolution, marked by both commendable successes and significant limitations, underscored the fact that maintaining stability in divided societies is an ongoing and dynamic challenge. The lessons learned from decades of peacekeeping in Cyprus are vital not only for the island itself, but also for reforming broader UN reforms and international practices in conflict management. In summary, key insights from today's analysis include immediate stabilization through traditional peacekeeping, which is necessary but not sufficient for lasting peace. Robust mediation efforts, when effectively integrated with peacekeeping, shall enhance conflict resolution prospects. Adaptive, inclusive, and context-specific reforms of peacekeeping mandates are essential to meet the unique challenges faced by modern operations. And of course, multilateral collaboration and resource optimization are critical components for ensuring the sustainability and relevance of peacekeeping missions. As the international community continues to debate the future of peacekeeping, the Cyprus paradigm emphasizes that pursuing of pragmatic hybrid models of operation, combining with military stabilization with active political engagement, will likely be key to addressing the intricacies of protracted conflicts in the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues and guests, thank you very much for your attention. I will be happy to take any questions from our fellow participants.
Thank you very much. Dear Loisos, can you fix it your picture because we can see the background, but not you. Yes, we could not see you.
Yeah, just let me try and fix that.
Okay, you can just, if you want, you can remove in order to see.
I think I shall get out and leave.
Yes, you can just background and to leave.
Just give me a minute. I will be just right back.
Okay. Dear esteemed colleagues and the guests, as now our speaker will come back, so you can prepare your questions or you can write in the chat box. As I see, we have one. So let me ask 2 questions from the YouTube, and after you can. Okay, perfect. The speaker came back. So, what I said in Greek, just bravo. It was really amazing. I really was excited. I was waiting the panel session in order to hear about the Cyprus. The conflict it's like a hot spot. Till now, as you just shown the picture is flooding, and it's really pain for all Cypriots, and not only for Cypriots. It's I feel your pain because from these countries where we came is also they have conflict in Armenia, the conflict in Georgia, the conflict in India, and the conflict outside. If you just touch, you can catch the Syria, you can catch the Lebanon, the all over planet is full of the conflicts which is bleeding, does not stop and not heal it yet. So there is too much to speak about it. The question is this, which I can say, that the Cyprus itself had lived and the frozen conflict, like we call the Euro de facto this the situation. So in decades, how can the lesson really from Cyprus, as you mentioned it in your presentation, inform new approaches to the global and regional security, especially like regarding divided societies?
Well, having in mind that Cyprus has been always actually under conflicts, but with the greatest one being the one with the Turkish invasion and occupation of the island. Just to have a brief idea for our guests and distinguished colleagues, as mentioned in my speech, Turkey has invaded Cyprus back in 1974, and the island is still under occupation. 34% of the territory is occupied by the Turkish troops, and the two communities has been divided since that time. In fact, there were significant efforts by the UN peacekeeping force to bring the two communities together through the last decades. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. And they were unsuccessful because they did not take into consideration the realities on the ground. They did not take into consideration the needs of the two communities, both the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots, and they actually tried to impose to the islands the what we called Western way of thinking, or what the United Nations believed that would be the right solution in Cyprus. This is exactly why all the past efforts and the negotiations that we had in Cyprus to solve the Cyprus problem were unsuccessful. Nevertheless, this is exactly why I suggest that we need a hybrid model. We need to include the societies, the local societies, in these initiatives. We need the two communities to be involved in person, not through their leaders or not through the political representatives. It is said that if it was upon people in Cyprus to solve the Cyprus problem would be solved 50 years ago. Unfortunately, it's all about politics. So if you don't realize, and if the United Nations, and this is effective to any region in the world that is under conflict and where the United Nations has peacekeeping missions, if they don't take into consideration the need of the involvement of the local communities, unfortunately, there will be never a political solution that will be viable or long-lasting. Therefore, the hybrid model suggested earlier, dear Christina, dear guests, and dear colleagues, it is essential, both in Cyprus and anywhere else in the world, if we need to have long-lasting peace, sustainable peace, which we have seen in the past that without having this in mind, without bringing the local society as an active actor in this process, does never success.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was really insightful, the answer. So I would just provoke you. I know. I just we are here to discuss in this panel session. So you're the fellow panelists now a bit busy here. We'll attend a bit later. So we'll give you more stage and freedom to speak, and especially that we are just live from Cyprus. How do you think, which you just spoke about the organizations like United Nations and etc. Which organization, or even maybe I will just rephrase, maybe it's better to involve with local organization more than rather to use UN or other organizations who are getting involved everywhere. That's why they can catch and get the meaning of the inner conflict of each of the country. Maybe some of my colleagues will disagree with that, but as a professional who is working and writing my dissertation exactly about these conflicts, I will say that I face it a lot of misunderstanding. That most of the officers don't, we call in the, if you translate some Greek, you have to smell the culture, you have to understand the culture, understand the negotiation. You have to feel the people, you have to live in this country in order to understand how it can be solved. How many years? How do you think? Do you need so many years in order to solve the conflict? This is my straight question. How do you think now, in action, you are, let's say, president of Cyprus, or you are whatever, the minister of the foreign affairs, or you are one of the great communities, one of the best communities, one of the strong community organization. What you will do, your first action, how do you think?
Well, definitely providing the vision that we need to provide to the Turkish Cypriot community to realize that their place is reuniting with the Greek Cypriots. Trust me, as I said earlier, if it was upon people, the Cyprus problem was going to be solved. It's a bit more complex in the case of Cyprus. It's an issue of serving the interest of Turkey, and it's an issue of serving the international interest of other actors as well. Nevertheless, the local community has never been actually involved actively in any effort. So if I was on that position, what I will do is start immediately campaigning, or you can say it whatever you want, just to show to the two communities, but especially to the minority community, which is the Turkish Cypriot community, how much they would be benefited by abandoning what Turkey actually forced them to do, to relocate to the north part of the island, to the occupied part of the island, rather than unifying with the other communities in Cyprus. By the way, in Cyprus, we have more than two communities. We have the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots, but also we have the Armenians, the Maronites, and the Latins, and we are just living peacefully among us. So what does really make the Turkish Cypriot community thinking that it will be better if they remain themselves or claim the so-called TRNC, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is recognized only by Turkey, rather than unifying the island again, becoming Cypriots again, one nation, and one nation enjoying the benefits of being in the European Union, of being a full member state of the United Nations, or whatever else does entail of being a unified, independent state. So this is the answer here, Christine. Communities, communities, communities. We need to get together. We need to make each other realize the benefits and the consequences of having 60 years of division. Enough is enough. You are absolutely right. It's too many years, dear Christine.
I would just say I will not say this government fault or something. Government may be doing great job, the president doing great job, but the one person can't handle all this story, especially long-term story. Doesn't matter who is on the charge. I can say because I investigated in Armenia, investigated in other countries where they have the same conflicts. I see a new question about the Indian, but I will just say to you something. It is pain for me as well because I just the Cyprus became my second homeland, and I do believe that the people want a peace. The people, regular people who is living, they don't want to have a war. They don't want to kill each other. We don't want to harm each other. We have to come as a guest to each other to celebrate everything what we have, especially in one island. We are not on the other continent. This is an island. It's impossible in my mind, logically. We can't divide island. Is united. And that is another story that the capital of Nicosia is divided. It's one of the capital on the planet which is divided into pieces, which is not good. I think this your presentation, maybe it will be like a light, maybe lighter, or maybe some communities from Turkish communities and the Greek communities, they will look at and listen us and say, okay, maybe we'll have different languages, but there is one single language, human, which unite us, all nationalities on this planet. We can, it's a verbal language, not only verbal. It may be verbal, you don't understand, but in verbal, so you non-verbally, you can see, you can feel that if they want a peace. I don't think so. When the child is born in Turkish or Greek family, they understand that, oh, this is a Turkish, oh, this is a Greek. I will not speak or I will not play with them in the kindergarten because it's written here he is Turkish or Greek. I think this is not correct. And the children exactly have that. This, what we don't have, we could not accept as adults. They don't divide each other. They play with each other. They share food with each other. They understand each other when they don't know the languages. This is what we need to do. Unite. Just come back, step back, like we are doing in mediation. We're coming from the past and understand the reality now and build the peaceful future, as I see. And I want to read the question because I see here the question.
If I may just comment something, dear Christine, before you read the questions. You know, my father actually was born and lived until the age of 11 when the Turkish invasion happened on the occupied site. He comes from Kirinya. On the other side, my mother was born here in Limassol, which was not under attack by the Turkish army back in 1974. And I always remember my mother telling me that she grew up and her best friend was her neighbor who was a Turkish Cypriot. They went to school together, they were playing together in the afternoon, they studied together until 1974, where the Turkish Cypriots were forced by the Turkish army to relocate to the occupied site. On the same time, dear Christina, you know, since 1974, the Greek Cypriots, until 2003, we were not allowed to visit the occupied site. There are the checkpoints. There is the so-called border, which is not a border. We never accept that there is a border between the two communities because this actually serves the narrative of Turkey that there are two states in this tiny island. So back in 2003, when the Turkish Cypriot authorities decided, the so-called authorities, decided to open the checkpoints and allow Greek Cypriots to pass to the other side, I still have the picture in my mind. I just see it in front of me of Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot friends, neighbors that they were living together before 1974, joining again after so many years, I still have in front of me the tears of joy they had by just coming together. This is Cyprus, dear Christine. This should be Cyprus. And trust me, these people, the people of Cyprus, in both communities, have great vision for this country. But great visions do not fit in divided homelands.
And I want to just comment, just another question. And from our ambassador in Europe, Andrew is the best man. He is really, he's not a theorist. He's working everywhere. He has been in Syria. He is rescuing Afghanistan. He's working to protect people and rescue them from the conflict zones. And I want to read what he said. Andrew said, I understand there have been 40 plus breaches of international law against Cyprus, but yet the United Nations does nothing. Is there a prospect of Cyprus to gain its true independence, given its strategic importance military? I know that, but this is like, for sure it's a question. I know that the both Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots lived in harmony for many years until the Turkish invasion, with many lost and killed. How do we bring about one peaceful island community?
Andrew, thank you for your question. Let me say that indeed the United Nations until today failed to address the issue. And mostly they have been criticized because they are using the so-called pretending neutrality, the necessary pretending neutrality. At some point, I can understand that. They are on the middle, they are the mediator, they are the facilitator of negotiations, and they must be neutral. On the other side, you're absolutely right. You cannot oversee the fact that there are not only 40 breaches of the international law, there are breaches every day of the international law in this country. So this is exactly why I'm telling that although we know that Turkey will not abandon their interest in Cyprus, we do know that Turkey wants to maintain in any way its presence to Cyprus to serve their own interests. We still need to find the way to bring the communities together in order to overcome, if you want, the political obstacles, the political barriers. If we are just expecting from Turkey to change their notion or idea or policy on what comes to Cyprus, trust me, this will never happen. So this is exactly why it's necessary to bring together the two communities in more, let's say, social or humanitarian ways, to remind them of what was how was living together before Turkish invasion. And that should be the pressure upon Turkey to proceed to a viable solution in Cyprus. Either way, because we have been negotiating in the last decades under the norm of coming to a bizonal, bicommunal federation. About 5 years ago, or something less from that, Turkey decided to abandon that base of negotiation, that basis, and change their policy back to we are not negotiating nothing else than two separated states. You do understand that this cannot be accepted. And this, trust me, is not accepted either by the Turkish Cypriot minority. Unfortunately, what is happening on the occupied side is that the Turkish Cypriot minority is vanishing from year to year. Settlers from Turkey are brought to the occupied side. They are changing demographically the occupied side. And at some point, when the two communities, or when the people of Cyprus will come to decide on a probable solution or a proposed solution, well, I'm quite afraid that it's not the Turkish Cypriots that will decide. So we need to hurry. We need to hurry and get the two communities together, just again to remind them how important unification, stability, and prosperity means for both communities.
So I just want the straight question. So do you think we do need to hurry, but I think we have to run, not even hurry. And this new generation, who she don't knows how to live and how he left, the ancestors left in the peaceful the island. Do you think them will against reunion, new generation?
I wouldn't say they were against reunification, but the issue with the new generation, Christine, it's a fact that we are seeing in international relations that when people forget their history or when they disconnect from their homeland ties, they are doomed to be vanished. As I said earlier, my father comes from the occupied side. I have never been to the occupied side because I do not accept to show my passport as requested by the Turkish Cypriot so-called authorities to pass to my own country. I will never accept that. But I do recognize the need, and I do respect the need of our fathers, our grandfathers that did pass to the occupied side by showing their passport. Nevertheless, I still have some pictures of the occupied side from my father and my grandfather. I know stories of how the occupied side was prior to the Turkish invasion. Today, I have a son of 3 years old. I have nothing to tell him. I have no physical pictures to give him. And he has no physical bonds with the occupied side. So do you think, Christina and dear colleagues, that if in 10 years, 20 years from today, that generation, the generation of my son, of our children, come to decide whether they want to unify again the island to an uncertain environment, because you know that change always brings uncertainty, rather than staying as we are today with the current status quo, or separated with the stability or the fictional stability that we think that we are having? What do you think they will decide? It's not, from my point of view, issue of being against reunification, but it's an issue of remaining stable and safe under your nest, the nest that you know until today.
Yes, this is correct. So we're moving. Sorry, we are taking more time for you because we have a lot of questions. So how do you think, ask doctor, maybe you will ask straight, or will you never mind, I will read. Tilangayam ask you, how do you think the virtual diplomacy, which because we are moving, I want just to rephrase his question, because we, as you see, we have a digital diplomacy, and we most of the time negotiations, everything we are trying to get involved in with use platforms. So, and online platforms can enhance global cooperation on peace and security issues, especially in the regions like the Eastern Mediterranean.
Absolutely. And not only online platforms, but also artificial intelligence, dear Christina. We do know that there are new tools, either in the field of artificial intelligence or even in the general field of the network, that can be used actually to facilitate both negotiations or even the interaction between the communities. Actually, in Cyprus, this has never been used. And maybe it's about time too, because it has been used in other parts of the world, but it was never used as a tool in Cyprus. So maybe within this hybrid model that I have suggested earlier, of the United Nations peacekeeping forces, again, not only Cyprus, but everywhere, they should incorporate these tools in order to facilitate the interaction of the conflicting communities in ways that maybe the physical interaction is not possible. In Cyprus, it is today, but it was not 20 years ago. So imagine if we had those tools in our hands, but back there, when the political issue was not that complex, when still the flame of the reunification of that generation was sparkling. Imagine if we had those tools and enforce those tools to bring the communities together. So absolutely yes, we need to incorporate both online tools, but also artificial intelligence, which we might be discovering now, but still it has great potentials.
So just I want to give the floor to Vasu Bansal. She has some question to you straight because she's also PhD student. He's writing dissertation, and he have some questions. Please, Vasu, mute yourself.
Hello, sir. So, my question is that given India's position in a regional marked by the border disputes, we know that India is aligned with seven small nations and other nations. So, in this, where there is a cross border terrorism and also global alliances nowadays are shifting, we are seeing that the situation with the US that recently happened of India. So, when in all this, how can mediation play a role when there is a deep conflict of trust is there? We don't trust each other. The nations are now shifting their alliances to one another. So how mediation can play a role?
Well, Vasu, you're absolutely right that the priority of any effort should be building trust. This is exactly what should be also a main task for the peacekeeping forces. In Cyprus, at some point, it has been accomplished. Though I do understand that in India's case, for example, in the conflict with Pakistan, might not be the issue or might not be that successful on resolving a long-lasting conflict that maybe, if mediation was successful between the two nations, the two people, that conflict would never be lasting that long until today. So mediation should change. It should reverse from what we know today, sitting with the leaders or the political actors on a table and try to come to the middle, let's say, but it should incorporate more realistic, more compound, and more holistic approaches, like bringing the people, the actual people together. So, as said before, in Cyprus, it has been done at some point, successful at some point, but still there are a lot of things to do. So, yeah, we definitely need the transformation of mediation into something that will be more inclusive, more holistic, and not that traditional as we know it until today.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
That was an insight.
So I know, you see, everybody brought to the table their country's pain. So in India, between Pakistan and now with Cyprus, with Turkey, and some of them, they are not here. So in Georgian representative, we do hope he will join us a bit later, maybe next panel. So, and I think I will, last question, and we need your feedback in this panel session. As you know, the Cyprus, and you are working in this field as well, Cyprus often acts as the front line of the state in migration and security issues. We have example, and when Syrian conflict have been, and the Cyprus help a lot of refugees. And how can this small state, really like Cyprus, transform vulnerability into diplomatic strengths? Because the small island did more than I think other huge countries with developing countries I'm talking about, who have more power in EU. How do you think?
Well, Christina, Cyprus is lying on the cross point of three continents, and it has always been said that the location, the geostrategical location of Cyprus, is both a bless and a curse. Blessed because we had and we do have the opportunity to maintain ties with all neighboring states, apart from Turkey, since Turkey does not recognize the Republic of Cyprus. But also at the same time, it has been the claim of everyone, actually, since it is a central point to serve geostrategical interests. So what Cyprus did in the latest years, and rightfully, on my opinion, is that we are playing the role of the stable neighbor. We are playing the role of the neighbor that, under consensus, can have good relations with everyone and assist in any way we can, including the humanitarian corridor that we use to play the role in cases of crisis, as we have seen in Syria, in Lebanon, and lately in the case of the hostilities in Gaza and Israel. But thank you very much for your question, because I wanted to point out something else since we are talking about migration. We have been talking until now about the Turkish invasion and occupation in the island back in 1974, which continues until today. Nevertheless, Turkey continues actually a new form of hybrid war against the Republic of Cyprus. And this is done through the illegal migration. We have proved everywhere, including the European Union and the United Nations, that Turkey is systemically trying to change the demography of the island, of the Greek Cypriot non-occupied side of the island, by bringing illegal migrants, either from Syria or from elsewhere, people that actually they are economic migrants and they are getting themselves and their life under threat by being promised a better future, but under false, of course, information. So what Turkey did, mostly in Greece and in Cyprus in the latest years, is that through specific channels that they are following, and in the case of Cyprus, it's the green line, the buffer zone, and the blind spots of the buffer zone. Imagine a buffer zone, as I said earlier, which is 180 kilometers long. There is no possibility and no capability of patrolling or surveilling all this territory. So there are specific blind spots. Those blind spots are used by Turkey and by Turkish smugglers to pass to the non-occupied side illegal migrants, changing this way the demography of the island. So you do understand that we are not in just a Turkish invasion and occupation, but we are still on an ongoing hybrid war. This is a great issue that we can discuss. I will stop here because I could talk hours about this issue. Trust me.
Migration terrorism. I will just say what. No, this is kind of the terroristic act, like we can call migration terror. Like we have a lot of things to discuss. I do understand your pain. So your feedback. I will just ask if someone or participant in the Zoom and outside of YouTube, if we will have the questions, you can ask now, or we will send to Mr. Luizus direct after by email. If someone that doesn't have questions, okay, I will just ask you, dear Luizus, share with us your future perspectives, because if you attend from the beginning my open ceremony, we open with our IAMPE declaration, decade declaration, 2025, 2035. In these 10 years, how do you see Cyprus?
Well, Cyprus has great potentials, but it has great potentials provided that it will be unified. It will be a safe place, a place that is welcoming to everyone, but mostly a place where the people of Cyprus, whether they are Turkish Cypriots or Greek Cypriots, can live together in peace, harmony, and prosperity. This can be done, dear Christine. This is manageable and it's feasible if we leave aside the political interest, if we leave aside what Turkey is claiming or what other actors are claiming upon the island, and eventually leave the island on its own to live in prosperity. This was never done, has never been left alone to live in prosperity, but it's about time. It's about time to leave these people in peace. It's about time to leave these people like elsewhere in the world, reunified and live how they should be living as one people, one common nation, one nation that can, trust me, excel in the geostrategical position that it is right now. So, if I'm optimistic, if your question is if I'm optimistic of this, if this is feasible, it is feasible, provided that the actors, the major actors, will change their attitude towards this humanitarian issue, this political issue, which has been a bleeding for Cyprus in the last 6 decades.
Yeah, I think there we have now a huge wheel, and I wanted to share just with positive vibes that in these 10 years, we want to see in each of the conflict countries, peace and reunion. And I do believe next time we will meet with each other, we will celebrate the reunion of the Cyprus, the reunion of in India, and the reunion in Romania, in Georgia, everywhere. And we will smile because the people, and their dream will come true. I think this is one of the biggest dream of this, our global peaceful, the peace reality that we have. So this is a dream will come true. And I want to say thank you for joining us today and sharing your vision and experience. And dear guests, we have now break because we will see you in 45 minutes. We are moving to the panel number 3. Thank you very much for joining and listening.
Thank you, everyone.